We're starting off with the topic media representations of age. Now, this particular topic, this is considered to be the last subtopic from the main topic, that is media representations. If you recall, we had initially spoken about media representations of gender. We went on to discuss media representations of ethnicity, followed by media representation of social class, and the final social group that we'd refer to over here, or that we'd be discussing today, is the media representation of age. Now, as we speak about the media representations of age, we need to remind ourselves that, yes, of course, gender is a highly discussed topic when it comes to media representations, followed by ethnicity. When you talk about social class and age, they're not considered to be as relevant. I mean, they're of course relevant, but to the extent to which they are discussed, or in sociological uh, the extent to which there are sociological arguments, debates, or discussions on media representation of age is relatively lesser. Do not miss on the word relatively that I use here. So, if we speak about the media representation of age, or as we speak about the media representation of age, it is pretty important that we understand that the media plays a very powerful role. It plays a very powerful role in shaping public perceptions about different age groups. Now, as I speak about the power that media holds, and over here, I'm not only referring to traditional media. Along with traditional media, we shouldn't miss on the new media as well. But of course, because the course that we're studying, because the syllabus that we currently preparing for, the syllabus focuses more on traditional media, and hence our discussion would revolve more around traditional media only, more around traditional media, not only. So as I talk about, as we refer to media, as we speak about media, the what I was saying is the media plays a very powerful role in terms of shaping public perceptions, the perceptions that the public holds about different age groups. These discussions include how young people are represented by the media, how middle-aged people are represented by the media, as well as how elderly people are represented by the media. Now, the focus of our discussion would be around young people and old age people, also referred to as the elderly, because these are the two groups, that is, the young people and the old people, that are commonly to be found to have a very negative perception, or we very often see that the media portrays them in a very negative manner. And when we speak about the youth and the old age, both, or elderly people, we should miss on the term ageism. Now, what does the term ageism over here mean? When you talk about ageism, or when we use the word ageism, ageism refers to the discrimination. Ageism typically refers to the discrimination that an individual experiences, or a particular social group experiences, merely on the basis of the age bracket that they belong to. So while discussing the media representation of age, we can talk about how the young and the elderly, they are represented, or they portrayed by different movies, films, televisions, newspaper, the news, the advertisements, and also not to forget that the stereotypical image, or the stereotypical portrayal of these two social groups, not only affects the expectations that individuals have from these two age groups, but again, the media ends up not only building perceptions, but I believe it ends up reinforcing the preconceived ideas that people hold about the young people and elderly people as well. Now, the belief that certain age groups are inherently inferior to others is referred to as ageism. Now, as we speak about young people, I'm sure you've noted, they're often depicted as troublemakers. They're shown by the media to be lazy, to be rebellious, as compared to the middle-aged people. Middle-aged people, the media shows them to be very career focused. They're almost always stressed. And if we talk about the elderly people in a stark comparison over here, we see that the elderly people, they're very frequently portrayed as either frail or in comical sense, or they're portrayed to be dependent and very dependent on the younger lot, right? Now, when we speak about, or as we speak about the experiences of elderly people over here, we cannot forget, or we should not forget, that when we talk about elderly people, even elderly people, they cannot be seen as a single unified social group. I'm sure you'd agree if I say the experiences of an elderly female as compared to the experiences of an elderly male, they're very different, which cannot be ignored. You'd see many elderly females, you'd see many elderly males being portrayed as being portrayed as more serious. You'd see them being uh, portrayed as someone who's wise, someone who's broadly respected. And on the other hand, if we speak about the portrayal of elderly females, unfortunately, it has never been the same. Elderly females are more to be found in comical senses. So, as we speak about, sorry, as we speak about this media representation of age, this, I believe, reflects, and not only reflects but also reinforces wider social attitudes towards different social towards age groups, which uh, which revolves around the idea of, if I talk about young people, the focus of the media has in most cases been on on juvenile delinquency, on the youth crime. Or we could also speak about how the workplace discriminates against both the younger lot and the elderly population as well. So there could be different sociological perspectives that we could add on towards the end as well. We could speak about functionist, Marxist, feminists, and not to forget the postmodernist perspective. So, having said that, let's begin. There are generally two ways in which the youth are represented in the media in the United Kingdom. So, we're talking about media representations of the youth in the United Kingdom. There are generally two broad ways in which the youth have been represented in the media. In fact, it wouldn't be wrong to say that the youth or the young people, they've been targeted and portrayed by the media in the United Kingdom. The first, on one hand, there is a whole part of the media that is specifically aimed at the youth, which includes there being musical that is readily available for them. In today's day and age, there are different streaming, movie streeting, I'm sorry, there are different streaming platforms like Netflix. You could talk about podcasts. I mean, these are for the what's the term we had used for this? The term was there's this specific term that we use uh, for the native internet users. I recall the word native, I can't think of the other word. So they're considered to be the natives when it comes to the usage of internet. I'm talking about streaming platforms, I'm talking about podcasts, I'm talking about different applications being designed, I'm talking about different websites that more so target only the youth. On the other hand, so yeah, the term is digital natives, thank you, the term is digital natives. So on the other hand, the teens, they're often portrayed as troublemaker or anti-authority figures as well. So when we talk about the youth being portrayed by the new media, or rather say the news media, the more so the news media, as troublemakers, as anti-authority figures, we're talking about the immorality that is caused. We're talking about the social problems that all of this leads to. So there's a constant fear regarding the deviant subcultures, which are also disliked by people in positions of authority. Now, when we use the word folk devil over here, or as we use the word folk devil over here, what does the word folk devil over here mean? The word folk devil over here refers to the people who belonging to a deviant subculture who are typically seen as a threat to the society. Now, remember, I'm using the word or I use the word folk devil. What does the word folk devil over here mean? The word folk devil over here refers to people or individuals who are belonging to a deviant subculture. And of course, when I talk about people or individuals over here, I'm sorry, I'm referring to the youth, referring to the younger lot. So there's a constant fear regarding the deviant subcultures, which are also disliked by people in position of authority. We're talking about how the people in position of authority, they see the youth as folk devils. The majority of moral panics since the 1950s, since we're talking about the United Kingdom over here, the majority of moral panics since the 1950s have been manufactured around the concerns about young people's behavior, such as the membership of a specific deviant subculture. You could talk about teddy boys, you could talk about hoodies, you could talk about mods and rockers. My personal favorite has always been mods and rockers, and I'd strongly advise you all to spare 5 minutes. YouTube mods and rockers, there'd be loads and loads of videos. Just click on the video that is somewhere around 3 to 7 minutes, somewhere around 5 minutes, and you'd have an amazing understanding of this. Not only would you have an amazing understanding of the mods and rockers as a subculture, as a deviant subculture, but this is an example that you can use or that you should use if required in a sociological evaluative essay as well. So taking this ahead, according to the United Kingdom National Child's Bureau in 2008, according to the United Kingdom National Child's Bureau in 2008, there were many more negative portrayals of the youth in the media as compared to positive ones. Furthermore, the media focus was more on youths of ethnic minorities. So according to the United Kingdom National Children's Bureau in 2008 confirms this media representation. The research was based on stories about young people which appeared in a sample of national and regional newspapers such as BBC News over a 2-week period in 2008. And if we have a look at the findings, we'd see how the media portrayed, or the media or how the media was producing more negative stories than positive ones about the youth, how the media's primary focus was primarily how the media's focus was primarily on youths belonging to minority ethnic groups, how the media uh, put use the idea uh, of negativity selling better. I'm sure you all remember Galting and Roog and how they claimed that bad news sells better, and how the journalists, they almost always feel themselves under pressure to cover negative stories, because guess what? Negative stories sell. And while while the media was trying to achieve their targets, they ended up portraying the youth in more of a negative manner than positive. It must be taken into consideration that bad news sells, and journalists are often pressurized to write negative articles about the youth. Now, having said that, if we move on and we talk about the elderly, or we talk about the media representation of old people, as we speak about the media representation of old people, according to Age Concern United Kingdom 2000 argues that the elderly are underrepresented across a variety of mass media. Now, about the elderly people, I recall from statistics from 2022 or 2023, if I'm not mistaken, they make around 19% of the people in the United Kingdom, they're 65 plus years. So a group that, I mean, this is true for UK, not true for Pakistan. In Pakistan, I believe it's very less. I don't exactly recall the number, but I don't want to quote a number which is very far from reality, but relatively, I remember this was super less. So when we are as we talk about individuals, as we talk about individuals from the elderly group, or if we talk about elderly people, according to according to Age Concern UK, these elderly people, they are severely underrepresented. They're severely underrepresented in the media. And I think wait a second. I think for Pakistan was around 4%. So you guys can double check this if you feel like. Whereas for UK, where there's an aging population, this is around 19% that I recall for sure. So getting back to where I was, we're talking about. Okay, getting back to the elderly people, the representation of the elderly was also negative for a long period of time. They were, they were and still are to an extent depicted as being weak, as being frail, oftentimes overcome with illnesses such as dementia, etc., etc. They're shown to be heavily dependent on their children to take care of them, and all of this doesn't really leave a very good image of the elderly for a viewer, for a reader, for a listener. So we've spoken about this. Age Concerns in UK argues that the elderly are severely underrepresented in the media. The cosmetic industry specifically leads to the elderly being underrepresented from media, as they often develop features that are seen as unattractive, such as wrinkles. Taking this ahead, if we sprinkle the feminist perspective, if we speak about the feminist perspective, feminists also argue that the media representation is affected by age. Like I had said, again, it's not, we cannot assume that the elderly are a single unified social group. Even if you talk about distinctions on the basis of gender, we would see how the portrayal of media, how the portrayal of elderly females is different from the portrayal of elderly males. So, feminists also argue that media representation is affected by age, as there are more older men in the media than women. For example, a female actress's salary peaks at the age of 34, then drops rapidly. However, male actors reach the age of 51 and then hit their peak salary. So, do you see quite a lot of difference over here as well? So if you recall, we had right at the beginning, I'd said, towards the end, since this is a topic that doesn't usually take very long. If you recall, right at the beginning, I'd spoken about how we could sprinkle sociological perspectives on this idea and very nature of a media representation on the basis of the age bracket an individual belongs to. So if we speak about the function, if we talk about the functions perspective, the oldest of sociological perspective, functionalists believe that different age groups have very specific roles to play within a society, and the media's representation reinforces these roles. Now, for instance, the media helps people prepare for different life stages, ensuring that there's a smooth transition through childhood, adulthood, and then old age. If we talk about an example over here, the portrayal of elderly people in some media, you'd see them in a wise and respected manner as well. Whereas on the other end, if we talk about the Marxist perspective, according to the Marxist perspective, the media portrays the young people, especially more so from the working class youth, as criminals, as rebellious, or they're the ones who, and you know what, this actually helps the people in authority justify greater policing. This helps them, or this facilitates their stop and search policing. This facilitates their stop and searching activity. I'm not sure if activity is the right word, but yeah, you could bring that in. You could also refer to or you could also refer to Cohen's book Moral Panics and Folk Devils, which was written, I believe, in the 1970s. You could talk about that. You could talk about how the elderly people are portrayed by the media as a drain on the pensions, on the healthcare. So the Marxist perspective is a conflict perspective. You can expect all of that. If we speak about the feminist perspective over here, the media's representation of age, like we discussed here, the media's representation of age impacts women more than it impacts men. Women are expected to maintain their youthful appearance for longer. If I may give you an example over here, the actor George Clooney, he's old and he's still very relevant. I mean, he was the last time I checked. If we take this ahead and talk about the postmodernist perspective, or if we talk about the postmodernist perspective, we could speak about how there's a lot more choice today as compared to the past, how there's no right way of being old. And the postmodernist perspective specifically argues that the media allows people to redefine their age. So you could use these sociological perspectives. Remember, if you're good with your perspectives, if you know basics on your perspectives, uh you could undoubtedly put them to use in any given evaluative essay answer. So let's take this a little ahead and talk about cross-cultural variations and discuss some recent developments as well. According to Idris and Riley in the year 2016, they point out that not all findings can be applied everywhere, such as the East, due to the existence of cultural differences. And this, I believe, makes a lot of sense. According to this research, if you talk about Asian collectivist cultures, you'd come across a very different portrayal of the elderly people as compared to the way elderly people are portrayed or represented by the media out in the West. Taking this ahead, while Western culture is a lot more individualistic, Eastern culture places a lot of emphasis towards respecting the elders of a society. In Malaysia, for example, there was a study conducted which showed that there has been progress in showing healthy and strong older adults in advertisements and the like. However, it is possible that Malaysia is an outlier amongst other Asian countries. Taking this ahead, if we talk about a comparison of the Eastern culture with the Western culture, in the West as well, the media may be reinventing how they portray the elderly. Here is where this is what I was talking about postmodernism. I was talking about individuals having more of choice. I was talking about how I was talking about the concept of fluidity, flexibility. So in the West as well, the media may be reinventing how they portray the elderly in the media due to the realization that the elderly have funds to spend on luxury products known as grey pounds. And talk about George Clooney. How could we forget Rupert Murdoch, the owner of News Corporation? He's 93. He recently got married. I keep on giving this example very often. And Rupert Murdoch, even to this date, is very relevant when it comes to the traditional media, when it comes to television, when it comes to newspapers, when it comes to magazines. So, how do you think the owner of or a media tycoon like Rupert Murdoch would want, or how do you think he would allow the elderly being portrayed in a comical manner? So, if we take this ahead and we talk about the study that was conducted by Monica Lee et al. In the year 2007, Lee et al. In 2007 notes that though the elderly in the West have a low representation rate in the media, 91% of this representation depicts them as the golden agers. This concept of golden agers who are active, who are alert, who are healthy, who are successful, and who are content. So however, this is also flawed due to not portraying the nuances of life when you're older, not showing a loss of a partner, for example. So even when you talk about the elderly being represented in a very positive light, I mean, there are some that are portrayed in a very positive light. More so, this is more relevant and applicable for elderly men. This cannot be seen as something that is absolute, because yes, on one end you portray these elderly people to be attractive and content and healthy and relevant. On the other hand, you cannot miss the losses that they've had in life, for instance the loss of a partner, for example. So this I believe is good enough for you to know. Of course, sociology is a subject. The more you read, the better understanding you have. The more you write, the better grade you get. So, yeah, having said that, I'd like to bring this topic to an end. I'd like to finally um, uh, declare a closure to the topic media representation. Remember, reading helps you understand your content better. So in our lessons ahead, we would be discussing a couple of questions on media that would help us have a better understanding on this particular topic. For now, thank you.